Former U.S. President Donald Trump is safe after shots were fired at his golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida, in what the FBI says was another assassination attempt. Officials say Secret Service agents spotted a rifle barrel poking out of the bushes as they were clearing holes on the course ahead of Trump, then fired on a gunman near the property line, only a few hundred yards from where the former president was playing. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw says a witness managed to take pictures of the suspect fleeing in a black Nissan.
So we had that information, our real-time crime center put it out to the license plate readers. And we were able to get a hit on that vehicle on I-95 as it was headed into Martin County. We got a hold of Martin County Sheriff's Office, alerted them, and they spotted the vehicle and pulled it over.
Bradshaw said officers found an AK-47 style rifle, 2 backpacks, and a GoPro camera at the scene. He also said a person was in custody. It was not clear if or how the suspect knew Trump was playing golf at the time. CNN, Fox News, and the New York Times identified the suspect as Ryan Wesley Ruth, 58, of Hawaii, citing unnamed law enforcement officials. Reuters found social media posts that matched the man identified by those outlets on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X. By Sunday night, Reuters was not able to confirm these were the suspect's accounts, and law enforcement agencies declined to comment. However, public access to the Facebook and X profiles was removed hours after the shooting. The 3 accounts bearing Ruth's name suggest he was an avid supporter of Ukraine in its war against Russia. In several of the posts, he appeared to be trying to help recruit soldiers for Ukraine's war effort. Trump sent an email after the incident to supporters, seen by Reuters, saying that he was safe. The former president was injured in July by an earlier assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, raising questions about protection for candidates just months ahead of the November 5th election. The first shooting of a U.S. president or major party presidential candidate in more than 4 decades was a glaring security lapse that forced Kimberly Cheadle to resign as Secret Service director under bipartisan congressional pressure.
Donald Trump's campaign promise to increase tariffs on imported goods, particularly from China, has support from a narrow majority of U.S. voters, a new Reuters Ipsos poll shows. Some 56% of registered voters in the September 11th through 12th poll said they were more likely to support a candidate backing a new 10% tariff or tax on all imports, as well as a 60% tariff on imports from China. By comparison, 41% said they were less likely to support a candidate attached to that proposal. The poll showed Harris with an overall 5 percentage point lead over Trump nationally, though the election will largely come down to 7 battleground states. The poll illustrates Trump's strength on a key issue, the U.S. economy, an advantage that one polling expert said flows from a perception that the economy did well while he was president and reflects his success in convincing voters that economic problems stemmed from underhanded competition from other countries. Until the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. economy by many measures performed well during the Trump administration, boosted by tax cuts for consumers, though the national debt was rising under Trump and would explode during the pandemic. The poll found 37% see Trump as more likely to focus on reducing the $35 trillion national debt, compared with 30% who picked Harris. Another 30% said neither would do so. Several prominent budget forecasters see Trump's tax proposals adding at least $3 trillion to federal deficits over a decade, while the same forecasters see Harris's plans adding less than $2 trillion or possibly reducing the debt. The Reuters Ipsos poll gathered responses online from 1,405 registered voters, with a margin of error of about 3 percentage points.
Police were seen patrolling the French coast on Sunday after authorities said several migrants died overnight in an attempt to cross the Channel to England. Jacques Bellon, prefect of the Pas-de-Calais region, said, quote, "A new tragedy took place around 1 o'clock this morning." He said rescue crews were alerted that a boat with 59 people on board was in difficulty in waters off the coast. 51 people who were rescued were now in the care of emergency crews, he said. Bellon added that the deceased were men from Eritrea, Sudan, Syria, Egypt, Iran and Afghanistan. The tragedy follows the deaths of 12 people earlier this month when their boat capsized in the Channel on its way to Britain. It also highlights the pressure on the British and French governments to find ways to tackle the boat crossings.
In the end, we have to smash the gangs.
British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said on Sunday the government was working with its European neighbours as well as domestic agencies to stop the human trafficking.
We met with the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister. We had a deep dive at the National Crime Agency because we are determined to deal with those supply routes that bring people illegally across the Channel.
The Channel is one of the world's busiest shipping lanes and currents are strong, which makes crossing on small boats dangerous. According to Bellon, 46 people have died trying to cross the Channel from France since the start of the year.
The death toll in Central and Eastern Europe rose on Sunday after days of torrential rain triggered flooding and burst riverbanks. At an emergency meeting, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced the country's first death after a person drowned in the southwest. Tusk said about 1,600 people were evacuated from their homes and expected many more to be forced to leave home, with more rain forecast for the next 2 days. It comes after officials in Romania said on Saturday that several people died and thousands of homes were damaged by flooding in the eastern part of the country. In Galați County, residents faced fast-flowing floodwaters that destroyed their homes and killed pets and livestock.
It destroyed everything. I don't have anything left. The beds are filled with mud, the pillows are filled. I have nowhere to sleep. Nothing.
Tens of thousands of households have been left without power in the region, with the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, southern Germany and parts of Austria also expected to see more heavy rain. Czech news agency CTK reported that more than 50,000 households had their electricity supply cut off, mostly in the north and northeastern areas. Forecasters warned that parts of the country could see more than a third of average annual rainfall by Sunday. The country's environment minister urged people in the worst-hit areas to prepare to leave their homes.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country would inflict a heavy price on the Iran-aligned Houthis after they reached central Israel with a missile on Sunday for the first time. Smoke billowed and a fire was seen in this open field near Kfar Daniel. Air raid sirens sounded in Tel Aviv and across central Israel just after 6:30 a.m. local time, sending residents running for shelter. No injuries were reported. After initially saying the missile had fallen in an open area, Israel's military later said it had probably fragmented in the air and that pieces of interceptors had landed in the fields and near a railway station. At a weekly cabinet meeting, Netanyahu said the Houthis should have known that Israel would exact a heavy price for any attack on the country. Whoever needs a reminder of that is invited to visit the Hodeidah port, Netanyahu said, referring to a deadly Israeli airstrike against Yemen in July in retaliation for a Houthi drone that hit Tel Aviv. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saraya said the group struck with a new hypersonic ballistic missile on Sunday that traveled nearly 1,300 miles in just 11.5 minutes. Saraya said Israel should expect more strikes in the future, quote, as we approach the first anniversary of the October 7th operation, referring to when Hamas militants launched a bloody attack in southern Israel that triggered the latest conflict in Gaza. Since the Gaza war began, the Houthis have fired missiles and drones at Israel repeatedly in what they say is solidarity with the Palestinians. But previous Houthi missiles have not penetrated as deep into Israeli airspace as this time.
The aftermath of flooding in Nigeria's northeast is raising alarming humanitarian concerns, with thousands facing displacement and a sharp increase in prices that threaten food security. Floods that swept through Nigeria's Borno state have affected up to 1 million people, its governor said on September 11th. At this camp in Maiduguri, children and families scrape the last bits from pots. Water scarcity also looms. Yagamo Malum Kachala and her large family were rescued from the flood by soldiers who got to them by boat. She says they have no food.
We were given a canopy and told that if we don't have a government-authorized card, we will not benefit from anything here. So I must go out and find some food for my family to eat. I have no money, and my elder brother also has no money. I don't even know where he is now. He must have gone scavenging.
The flood began when a dam overflowed after heavy rains. Authorities scrambled to rescue residents and put them in temporary shelters. The United Nations World Food Program delivered aid to displaced people on Friday. Emmanuel Biganimana, the head of its Maduguri area office, said there are hundreds of thousands of people now living in internally displaced people camps and on the street.
This is really an additional burden to already existing crisis. This region has been facing conflict for a decade, and more recently we have seen food inflation that where food has been really, food prices have been skyrocketing, really affecting millions of the people who are facing food insecurity.
104 striking Samsung workers were detained by police on Monday. Officials said they were held for planning a march without permission, which they needed since there are schools, colleges and hospitals in the area. It marks an escalation of a strike at a Samsung home appliance plant near Chennai in southern India. More than 1,000 employees have boycotted work for a week. They want higher wages, better working hours and recognition of a union backed by influential labour group the Centre of Indian Trade Unions, or CITU. Samsung isn't keen to recognise any union backed by a national labour group like the CITU, and talks have not yet led to any agreement. The move has disrupted production that contributes roughly a third of Samsung's annual India revenue of $12 billion. Workers have protested at a makeshift tent near the plant since last week. The strike adds to Samsung's challenges in India, a key growth market. The South Korean company plans job cuts of up to 30% of its overseas staff in some divisions, including in India. India's antitrust body has also found Samsung and other smartphone companies violated competition laws by colluding with e-commerce giants to launch devices exclusively. Samsung did not respond to a request for comment on Monday, but on Friday the firm said it had initiated discussions with workers at the Chennai plant to resolve all issues at the earliest. The Samsung protests have cast a doubt on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's plan of courting foreign investors to make in India. He also aims to triple electronics production to $500 billion in 6 years.
That night I talked about issues that matter to families across America, like bringing down the cost of living, investing in America's small businesses, protecting reproductive freedom, and keeping our nation safe and secure. But that is not what we heard from Donald Trump. Instead, it was the same old show. The same tired playbook we've heard for years, with no plan on how he would address the needs of the American people. Well, folks, it's time to turn the page. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States of America should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States.
Quelque chose qui peut nous paraître absolument banal, mais en réalité, c'est eu un enquêteur qui a eu ce réflexe de regarder dans le téléphone, de regarder.
Moi, je voudrais dire à Gisèle qu'on entend sa parole.
I would like to tell Giselle that we hear her words. I am here to speak for the victims, to tell them that we are listening to them, we will fight for them, that the impunity of men is over.
Le viol, l'inceste, les violences domestiques, et de s'assurer que chacun et chacune puisse être protégé dans son intégrité.
when I'm back in that beautiful White House, we will pass larger tax cuts for workers, and we have a special tax that here is going to do, I think, quite well. It's called no tax on tips. No tax on tips. No tax on tips. And we will have no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors. And then we wheeled out a great one, and I actually think this is going to be fantastic for the country as well as the worker, because a lot of people are going to be working overtime. And just yesterday I announced that there will be no taxes on overtime.